Hey, rapper. Hello, I'm MCToon, the worst rapper in the world. I have with me today Austin Whitsitt. How you doing, Austin? Can you hear me?
Yeah. I'm
Yeah.
trying to make sure there's not an
Okay.
echo.
I don't hear an echo myself. So, people, can you hear him? He's trying to broadcast simultaneously on his Facebook as well. So there's a little extra logistics today. So is it working for you, Austin?
Oh, I know what it is. I know. Yeah. It's working. I might just have a little echo. I don't know what's going on, but it's whatever.
Okay. Well, good. Yeah, people are saying they don't hear an echo, and they hear, so that's good.
Cool.
So, Austin, you want to tell us a little bit about yourself? Don't go into any of the what we're going to cover later. Just anything you want to cover, who you are, whatever.
Um, yeah, sure. My name's Austin Whitsitt. I am 27. I work at an airport, and I guess just for the relevancy of this conversation, the way that this journey, if you will, started for me was 4 years ago or so. I started looking into this to basically disprove the nonsense I consider to be flat Earth. And yeah, so it's been like a 4 year journey or so. I'm not a flat earther per se. I'm not a fan of binaries. But yeah, needless to say, obviously over 4 years, I have not been able to substantiate the heliocentric model, and I thought it would be as easy as to look up some pictures of Earth. So yeah, I guess that's really about it.
All right. So your video is still very fuzzy. So just so you know.
Okay,
So
let me just a second. Guys, best just go to his YouTube, MCToon, to watch it. That way you'll see both of us, and maybe it'll free up the bandwidth. So I'm ending this. Okay. All right. I don't know if that helps.
we'll see in a second here. Still a little choppy. It was better when we were before we started.
And I got serious echo feedback. It's whatever. I may just have to be a little delayed so I can hear it
Okay. Well,
sit out, but I have a minimal amount of windows open and
all right. Well, I have my required 7,000 tabs open. So
cool.
your video does look a little better. I think moving around fast probably makes it a little difficult too. So, all right.
Yeah, this is
So,
my friend's laptop, super old as well. So.
he's super old.
The laptop is old.
So, all right. So you had a bunch of claims, and I did a video. I just took one of your videos from Facebook and the thread on the Facebook group, and just put it on that video. And there's I don't know if you saw it or not, but it was just you. It wasn't really modified, and a lot of claims that you made in there. So do you want to go first with your position, or do you want me to go first? What do you think?
Yeah, I don't care. I will just go ahead and address. I see the main idea that you're basically presenting is that I claim to have positive scientific claims to disprove gravity, which is somewhat of oxymoron. But of course, the claim that gravity exists is a positive claim in and of itself. So my real claim is simply that gravity can't be substantiated. But I'm more than happy to go back and forth on that. And then, my more accurately, my claim or my invite to debate is, the specifics of the heliocentric model. If that, I don't believe that one can substantiate that without repetitive, requirements of faith, basically. So, to kind of clarify.
Without faith.
Yeah. Yep.
So I guess then what makes things go down at 9.8 meters per second squared?
I believe that mathematical computing is just after the fact of observation. Density makes things fall. Actually, personally, I subscribe to something more in the field of Tesla's dynamic theory of gravity, which is, in layman terms, photons or electromagnetic energy being inherent with the reaction of matter and ether comes up from the ground. So whatever it is that comes down is simply the residual effect of electromagnetic energy. I do not subscribe to this fantastical, magical force of gravity, which has never been recreated. The only reason gravity, in my understanding, the only reason that it has ever even been come up with is to be able to make the heliocentric model work, and that's what it is.
So you don't have an explanation for why things go down at a certain rate?
Yeah, I just said that density is why things weigh more than air. Weigh, of course, has a negative, inaccurate connotation because of gravity, but I again said I subscribe to more so the idea of Tesla's dynamic theory of gravity. Gravity, again, has a negative or an inaccurate connotation. Tesla did not use that word the way that it is currently used, but the metrics of 9.8 meters per second squared is an after the fact of observation. So the fact that something falls and can be measured does not prove, this magical force that's dependent on mass. So it's a basically, in a way, a straw man, if you will, that I'm denying the fact that 9.8 meters per second can be observed. That's not what it is. I'm saying gravity cannot be recreated, and the definition of 9.8 meters per second squared, or the mathematical connotation of that, is just an afterthought of the observation itself. So
it's an afterthought of the observation. So
yeah.
Do you know what a scientific law is?
Yeah.
Okay, what is a scientific law?
Well, scientific laws, can be definitively substantiated. I know that people say that there's a law of gravity, but that is far from the truth because gravity's never been proven. So I prefer to interpret the scientific method literally, not the modern cult of science and pseudoscience. So, if something can be repeated and observed and recreated, then it can then be considered a law. Gravity's a theory. It doesn't matter if you call it the law of gravity. It cannot be recreated. It's literally never been recreated. So I don't consider gravity a law.
So it's literally never been recreated. Therefore, you will reject that it is the law. Reject
That's
the
correct.
Law of gravity. Okay.
But
So
it's not yet.
So I will post in chat here and to you. What is a law? Scientific law. Now, Berkeley, University of Berkeley has a very good kind of a college level description of what is science. And so they have a very big and well defined website going over these things. So a law is a rule that must be abided or something that can be relied upon to occur in a particular situation. Scientific laws, on the other hand, are less rigid, right? So that's different from a political law or a government law. So scientific laws are less rigid. They have exceptions. Like other scientific knowledge, they may be modified or rejected based on new evidence and perspectives. In science, The term law usually refers to a generalization about data that is a compact way of describing what we'd expect to happen in a particular situation. Sorry, it gets long. I'm not going to go over the whole thing. I posted it for people to read. Yeah. In short, it's observations, and then it's a model based on those observations. It doesn't describe why. It just describes that something happens. So that they talk about the laws of thermodynamics, the laws of motion, Kepler's laws, those types of things. So that is why it's called the law of gravitation, because it's been measured, it's been identified, it's been tested, and every time it's tested, it works. Right? So do you know what the law of gravitation is? Austin.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I have an echo, so I'm just letting it play out.
So do you know what the law of gravitation, gravitational attraction is?
You tell me.
All right. It is encapsulated in a formula, but it is that all masses in the universe attract each other, directly proportional to their mass, and inversely proportional to their radius, or the distance between them. So it's the formula is F equals G, the gravitational constant, times the one mass times the other mass, both of them then over the radius squared, or the distance between between them squared. So it's based on observation, and nobody yet has, at least in our Newtonian area here on the Earth, identified where it's wrong. There are exceptions like that people have found when you're talking about things like the orbit of Mercury, for example. But within our inertial reference frame, it works. So I asked you several times if you'd have something, some scientific things to present, and you said you did. So before I get into my thing, so far all you've done basically is deny, which I'm used to. Basically everybody just says nuh-uh. So
you're just repeating the current connotation of the word law, which I already prefaced this by saying I don't agree with it. No, I'm not. This is the point. Gravity is a positive claim. In and of itself, I am saying that you cannot substantiate that claim in my connotation of law, which is something that is definitive. You're basically saying something's a law until it can be disproven. I think that's a semantical argument. I'm not particularly interested in semantics, but I will tell you what the flaws in gravity simply being they are not observable. And on the quantum scale, the current, equation of gravity does not work, and that's consensus. That's not even debated, which is why there's a huge split in quantum physics and other physicists. It doesn't work on the quantum scale. So not only is it a literal claim that can be repeated, we actually have observations that are not cohesive with that claim. Gravity does not work on the quantum scale. So, of course, to be fair,
it's not claiming to work on that scale, so that's not a problem.
So gravity doesn't exist on the quantum scale.
That's not the claim. The claim is that gravity works within a certain range.
So gravity only exists based on certain levels of mass or certain sizes of objects. It is not a consistent existence, if you will.
It works within certain frames, yeah.
So how could it be a law if it's dependent on the environment?
That's how all the laws are. All the laws of science are like that. It works within certain ranges.
Okay, so you are conceding that gravity is not cohesive with observations on the quantum level.
Sure.
Okay, so you can see how that clearly pokes a hole in the ability to definitively proclaim it to be fact.
Nobody's proclaiming it to be fact. In fact,
you are.
What I read. Sorry, I'll read it again. They may have exceptions. and like other scientific knowledge, may be modified or rejected based on new evidence and perspectives. So that's laws. They may have exceptions. I cited an exception. So, or you did, which is perfectly fine. So, the problem is now there is a downward acceleration, and it's measured and it's known and it's quantified, and so far you don't have any explanation for it other than, well, I don't like gravity. That's all you have.
Well, actually, that's not true. That's why the viewer will obviously decide whether or not your straw mans are true. But
all right, so then present, why do things fall at 9.8 meters per
I
second
already
squared?
did at the beginning of this conversation, so I'll do it again. There are numerous different potential explanations for why things fall. I gave you the one that I subscribe to, which is Tesla's dynamic theory of gravity, which simply
all you did is you said words. Okay, so I'm going to be looking for some scientific evidence of this.
Okay, the scientific evidence is that things fall to the ground. Now, we are discussing the specifics of why that is. Okay, you are proclaiming an independent force known as gravity. I am saying that gravity, for sake of conversation and all intents and purposes, is the residual effect of electromagnetic energy. Okay, so electromagnetic energy inherent with matter, operating with the ether, radiates from the earth, being immense in matter, and the residual effect coming down is what you are referencing as gravity. Where it gets fantastical is that you then take this observable phenomena, which is things going downwards, and then applying it to some form of a mass, making things revolve around each other, this magical force which has never been observed or recreated. So the current connotation of gravity is definitively not been substantiated. It cannot be observed or
recreated. All right,
recreated.
So you're going back to the non-positive support of your own side. So here's the deal. If this pen here is at the same electrical potential as the ground, by maybe having a wire to it so that there's no electrical potential difference, and you're saying it's electrical that's making it fall, why would it fall if they're at the same potential?
No. What I said was the electromagnetic energy coming up creates a residual reciprocation, and that is what makes things go down. Or for layman terms, density alone is a sufficient answer for why something falls. The density relative to the atmospheric conditions. So the reason gravity was introduced was to explain the Copernican model.
You're still going off of the positive support for your claim there.
Wait, you're the one claiming something exists. That's a positive claim. I'm claiming you can't substantiate that positive claim. So you can try to semantically say that
you're trying to dismiss gravity, which has a lot of support, and there's a huge amount of evidence for it that you've just kind of dismissed. And
present it.
Well, but you were going first, and I'm ready to do that, but I was letting you go first.
Okay.
So you haven't you've just said it's electrical something and density something, but you haven't actually given me a reason why there's a 9.8 meters per second squared downward acceleration.
That is the measurement cohesive with something having more density than the atmosphere. Which causes it to fall.
But why is there the same amount of acceleration for things that have different densities?
And I said, because in my opinion, I subscribe to the dynamic theory of gravity, electromagnetic energy.
And how do we calculate that then?
It has a consistent relationship with the air. So it is consistent and repeatable. That's why the 9.8 meters per second works.
So it has a consistent relationship with air. So if we say we're to take a tube and evacuate most of the air, will it change how fast it goes down? Because it has a relationship with the air. So if we remove the air, then it should change, by your hypothesis, it should change how fast it goes down.
Not as long as electromagnetic energy still rises.
But what if you're talking electromagnetism? Then you got to talk about either magnetism, which doesn't affect plastic, or electricity, which is nullified when you have the same potential, like with a wire.
electromagnetic energy in the connotation of Tesla's dynamic theory of gravity. I don't understand what's not being
Yeah,
understood,
you're because
honestly.
you're not explaining anything really.
I
You're
have
just throwing
explained it.
out these words, and I don't think you really quite understand them.
No, I think that you are operating off of a semantical argument because you cannot substantiate the current connotation of gravity being that it can cause another body to revolve around it. So for to concede some middle ground here, I am not saying what disproves or the problem with gravity is that it consistently can't be measured. That is pretty objective that the 9.8 meters per second squared is consistent. No one's disputing that. I'm disputing the current connotation of gravity being how that is the glue of the heliocentric model. So the proof or the problem with gravity is not that something falls to the ground. The problem with the current connotation of gravity is that the mass can cause another object to revolve around it. That has nothing to do with falling. Okay, so you have a different explanation for why things fall than I do. You subscribe to the current connotation of relativity or the Newtonian idea of gravity. I subscribe to the Tesla's dynamic theory of gravity, which is simply gravity just needing to label the residual effects of the electromagnetic energy's relationship with the ether. Special relativity dismisses the existence of ether. So
Wait,
we have a
no, hold on,
fundamental disagreement.
hold on. Ether was about light. Are you? Did you just invent a new ether that's about gravity?
No, ether is the makeup of the entirety of the universe. So if for an illustration, if a pond, you throw a rock into a pond and the ripples happen, the lake is the ether.
Okay, so now, unfortunately, ether was tested and found to not exist.
Uh, you're talking about, I'm assuming, maybe the Michelson-Morley experiment?
That's the one. Yes.
Yeah, that's funny you bring that up because that is so damning to your belief system. When they did the Michelson-Morley experiment, I'm assuming that you know that it showed that there was no movement, there was nothing acting on the perpendicular rays.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. I will bring it up, and then you can point to me. You can point out to me where it is that you're talking about.
About the movement, no movement was detected.
They weren't testing for movement, but you can show me. I will. I'll bring it up. I'll share you my screen here, and then you can find for me in the Michelson-Morley experiment where. Let me grade it here. Where it says what you say it says.
Which is that there was no movement acting on the rays. That is the literal result of the experiment.
So just a second here. I gotta. There it is. All right. So everybody's seeing it, including you. So right here it is. What line, what paragraph was it you're talking about?
Just go to the conclusion of the experiment, man. You're claiming that somehow movement was measured in the experiment. You say it wasn't meant to do that, but that was a byproduct of the mechanics, the apparatus.
I haven't made any claims about what it says, other than that.
You just said it did not come out to show that there wasn't movement acting on the perpendicular rays. That was what you just said.
I said you don't quite know what it's doing. You did. I don't think you read this. Did you read it?
Wait, what do you mean?
Did you read the actual Michelson-Morley experiment?
Yes.
Okay.
A long time ago.
Long time ago.
And I do know that the result of the experiment was that the perpendicular photons did not have any form of an exterior force acting on them. And so the conclusion was that there was not a detectable movement of Earth measured.
No.
That's literally why the general relativity and special relativity was increased.
I have it on the screen. So where does it say they did not detect movement of the Earth?
The conclusion of the experiment.
Yeah. Where? It's on the screen.
Are you denying that the Michelson-Morley experiment concluded that there was no movement? I'm not exactly sure what you're saying.
I am absolutely denying that because I read the whole thing.
Okay, then show me where it says that the conclusion was that there was a movement acting on the rays.
No, they were unable to measure the relative motion between the Earth and the luminiferous ether. That's what they concluded. They did not conclude anything about the movement of the Earth. In fact, it was the null conclusion. They were expecting to see fringes happen, and they did not see fringes happen. So they had to go with the null experiment, or the null hypothesis, which is we did not detect ether. That's what they detected. No, they did not say or movement anywhere in the study.
Okay, were the conclusions of the experiment that the rays were unaffected?
The rays?
Yes, the photons, the perpendicular light rays.
Yes, it was unaffected.
Okay, so thus, a logical deduction there is that there is no movement acting on the perpendicular rays. There was actually more than one experiment. There was one in 87. There was one in maybe 81. Okay, and I'm assuming that you haven't read Einstein's comments on the Michelson-Morley experiment.
You were making claims about the conclusion of the Michelson-Morley experiment. So let's wrap that up. So if
my claim is that based on the results of the experiment, there was no movement detected. I'm not arguing. I do know that the original test purpose was revolving around ether. I'm not disputing this.
Okay.
What I'm saying is, based on the results, that the logical deduction was no movement operated or acted on the rays.
Yeah, they measured no fringe shift.
Yeah, right. They moved none.
Yep. So, and it was repeated in 1925 with R.J. Kennedy, Roy Kennedy, and they found the same thing. Quote, the result was perfectly definite. There was no sign of a shift depending on the orientation, end quote.
Okay.
So same result, higher quality experiment, tighter margins of error.
Which they were both insanely tight margins anyway. And I understand what you're saying here. What that experiment concludes for me simply is that the connotation of ether, how it operates at that time, was incorrect. That does not dispel the possibility of the existence of ether.
Okay, so
matter of fact,
you're trying to conclude from that something that they did not conclude, and I tell you, I'll give you that within the confines of this experiment alone, you could conclude that if there is ether, that it is moving along with the Earth, or that they're both stationary.
Or simply ether is more of a reciprocation. I mean, the lack of knowledge about ether, or the ability to adequately measure it or predict it in 1925, which it's dead science now, of course, since the magical special relativity got brought into the picture, does not disprove ether, though. And so I'm telling you, this is a subjective realm here. I personally subscribe to a direction of Tesla's interpretation of the dynamic theory of gravity. So I knew what experiment you were referencing before you did, to say that it disproved ether. I simply disagree with that broad assertion that it disproved ether. It did not disprove ether. It simply did not show that the current understanding of ether was accurate. So
okay.
See what I'm saying?
All right. So then what makes you think that there is ether?
Well, almost all of Tesla's inventions were created based off that assumption. And for them to be, consistently efficient,
So what was his most successful invention, you think?
I don't know. That's a huge question. I mean, I guess we'll just automatically have to ignore anything that the government could have taken, which they did literally take his inventions. But I mean, wireless transmission. He claimed to have
Okay.
had an automobile.
So his most successful is RF. He basically created radio, like AM and FM radio. He created what we use for Bluetooth. He created all that stuff, right? So
Alternate current.
So does that require ether?
Does wireless transmission?
Yeah.
I haven't read his wireless transmission patent, so I don't know. I do know that he was a strong
just radio
advocate.
frequencies.
He was a staunch advocate.
You claimed all all of his stuff, all of his inventions required ether.
No, that's not what I
relied
claim.
on
That's
ether
not what I claim.
or something.
I claim that he subscribed to the idea of ether, and for his basic understanding of physics to be correct, I logically deduce, which is an opinion, that his understanding of ether would be more accurate than
Okay.
the current
So there we go. So
relativity nonsense.
So you don't have any
This is all
evidence. You just have your opinion about it. Okay.
That's what you're asking me, though. You're asking me my opinion. I'm telling you that you say that gravity or the theory of relativity is accurate. I'm saying you cannot substantiate that because it's not observable or provable. So,
well, I haven't brought up relativity as being observable or provable or anything. I'm talking about gravity, which is Newtonian, not Einsteinian. So all right. So to recap here, there is a downward.
If you believe in the current model of Earth, then you subscribe to relativity.
I'm not talking about that right now. So to review, we have 9.8 meters per second downward, not per second squared, downward acceleration for which you have not provided a reason other than it's Tesla's stuff. And when asked about and saying it's about a relationship between the object and the atmosphere, and I say, what if the atmosphere is gone? Doesn't matter. It's about electromagnetism.
It's not the object. It is the energy coming from emitted from matter.
What energy?
Electromagnetic energy.
Okay, so if it's inside of a Faraday cage, then things should float?
So you're saying that matter... See, this is, again, subjective. I subscribe to Tesla's. He says that electromagnetic energy is inherent in matter due to the effects of ether reciprocating electromagnetic energy. Gravity, for all intents and purposes, is the residual effect of that. And I also said earlier, to avoid all this rabbit hole of semantics and subjective conversation, was I am not disputing gravity in the sense that it can accurately dispute that, record that something falls at a consistent speed. I'm not disputing that because it's provable. It just doesn't prove gravity is true. Things fall consistently. Density is provable. The metrics, math is like a language. It's self-fulfilling. Of course, the metrics works once it's accurately depicted the first time. I am disputing gravity in the current connotation of the universe and the solar system, and there is no definitive way to disprove gravity if you choose to label the effect of something falling as gravity. It is circular logic. So call it what you want to call it.
So if I were to, right, so here, I'm going to write down the law of gravitational attraction, right? Okay, so I got it here. Right, and I'll take this off our screen here. And I'll take how do I stop presenting? There we go. There you go. All right, you see that?
Mm-hmm.
There it is. That outputs 9.8 meters per second squared. I'll get into that later. So I'm ready now to write down what outputs 9.8 meters per second squared for you.
Dude, you just ignored the entire premise, which is that I'm not disputing the accuracy of the metrics 9.8 meters squared or the way that is concluded.
It's what causes it. Yeah. So and how do you do that? You don't get to use this formula though. All right. So using your Tesla formula.
Formulas are self-fulfilling.
All right. We got F equals, and then what do you got?
So since I haven't created my own physical theory, therefore gravity's real.
No, you haven't provided an alternative. Therefore,
I did at the beginning of the conversation.
No, it's blank right here.
I don't have to fit into your mathematical equation of gravity.
This is your mathematical equation right here. So far we have F equals and then nothing is your mathematical equation. So what is your mathematical equation that we can use to test? It's a hypothesis until it's been confirmed that the downward acceleration is due to something that's not gravity.
Density.
Okay, so we got D. F equals D. Yeah. Is that it?
See, this is hilarious. So what? Again,
because
what you're
density
doesn't
work.
I haven't created my own physics equation for density or an alternative to the current connotation of gravity. Therefore, gravity's real. That's what you're saying.
No, it's your job to bring positive evidence. You keep deflecting into trying to attack gravity. Don't attack gravity. Bring your own thing, because when I present my part, when I present my part supporting gravity, I'm never once going to say yours is not going to work. Yours is not. I'm going to say this is the positive
that isn't your
gravity.
Part, bro. That isn't your part. You didn't come up with that equation. You did nothing to. You have.
I don't need to have come up with it for it to work.
No, but what I'm saying is, don't say it's yours. You're like, oh, I have mine. Now come up with yours.
It's my presentation. In my presentation, I will not be saying density doesn't work, right? Or whatever you want doesn't work. Right?
I believe that density is the reason things fall. The density relationship to the atmospheric conditions of the object in the atmosphere. That is my belief. I also tend to lean towards the idea of Tesla's dynamic theory of gravity, which is classified still and unavailable under the Freedom of Information Act. So all I have is a few statements he's released about it. The reason I do that is because I know that the special relativity is nonsense. Again, you're using the Newtonian idea, which I am not disputing that you can measure consistently that something falls to the ground. That is not my argument. I am not disputing that. It is provable. That would be ignorant. What I'm saying is that the gravitational force of mass propelling an object to it, it cannot be substantiated the way that the heliocentric model utilizes.
You keep going.
And this is why you singled out gravity.
You keep leaving your positive evidence and trying to go for the negative. Like I said, I'm never going to go for the negative evidence. I'm just going to present positive evidence. And you haven't yet actually presented anything other than to say density, atmospheric relationship. Neither of those work.
Why?
Because density is not a force. Density doesn't create acceleration. Why does it have to be a force?
The only reason that it has to be a force is to explain the fact that a celestial body would operate based on the other body. That's where the force came from.
That
is density.
Is a force.
Density. That's density.
But a
force is created due to the density relationship.
Sure. All right.
It's just like Neil deGrasse Tyson saying gravity.
The density relationship. So should we subtract? All right. So here, density of air, or let's see, density of pen minus density of air. Right there. Is that a good formula? That's the density relationship put in math.
Sure, if that floats your boat, man.
No, this is your boat, man. So
no, actually, once again, I'm not. See, this is what you're doing. You're attempting to. And I didn't watch any of your stuff, but I guess this is what you normally do. I don't have to create some kind of an equation and come up with some thesis for you to be able to, in order for you to not be able to substantiate your theory.
You do.
That's my claim. You can't substantiate gravity.
If you're trying to replace the current model for something, your model has to meet all of the things that the current model does the same or better. And so far,
density and buoyancy are why things fall, man.
Okay, so then what's the formula for that so that we can test your hypothesis?
I don't know, nor do I care, and that is a semantical nonsensical argument.
It is certainly not, because here's the thing: people build buildings and they use gravity. People use gravity all the time in their regular jobs, and so for you to just say, nah, I don't need to provide something, right? All of these millions of people that do their job that rely on using gravity. Now you're saying, oh, what you do doesn't actually work, and I don't need to, right, do anything to provide.
Please enlighten me how someone building a building uses gravity. I must be missing something here.
You need to calculate the forces so that you can do the statics and dynamics to make sure that things are going to support the structure.
That's how you have to use gravity.
Yeah, you certainly do. And I know you didn't go to college. So when you
build a building, they use gravity. Okay.
I did, cool. and I did not study mechanical engineering or civil engineering, but I did have several classes that cover those things, including one of my least favorite classes was statics and dynamics, because I was studying electrical engineering, and That was a pain in the butt class too, because that's the class that the other people take. So the teacher's kind of the one that they're trying to get rid of. So he was terrible. But here's the deal. They use it. They use gravity all the time. So
Sure, bro. I'm trying to reach the middle ground here. You don't want that to happen because it doesn't work with your situation here. But what
you don't get a middle ground. You're trying to replace gravity. So
no. I have conceded numerous times that the metrics of the current gravitational equation are accurate, observable, and consistent.
Oh, well then there's nothing to discuss. Cool.
No, I've said that the whole time, and anyone that's watched it has heard me say that the metrics, equations are self-fulfilling. I'm not disputing the consistency of math once it has been observed and then repeated. What I'm disputing is gravity in the connotation of the solar system and where we live. So I've already conceded that the metrics of something falling being 9.8 meters per second squared can be observed. That does not substantiate that a body or mass can bring another object to revolve around it. And that is my argument. My argument
so all of Kepler's laws you're going to kick out.
So, I don't even know what his laws are, to be honest. I can't remember.
So what makes the moon's orbit around Jupiter?
I don't know that moon's orbit around Jupiter. So, but here. Now that we can finally get into the real conversation, okay? So, the conversation when I made the video, what I am disputing is the heliocentric application of gravity. Okay, so
you mean mass attracting mass?
Yes, exactly. In the heliocentric solar system.
So you're saying that mass does not attract mass?
Not due to the special relativity. No.
Not due to special relativity.
Mass already obviously attracts mass. Again, I just conceded that things fall to the ground or because of wave dispersion. But what I've already conceded that, there is a relationship between mass, two objects, matter or mass, that propels electromagnetic energy. That is what I subscribe to, okay? You subscribe to a tiny speck of dust revolving due to the density or due to the mass and the gravitational pull of the sun. That's what you subscribe to and you claim to be real. So I'm saying you have to substantiate the heliocentric model, and the whole reason special relativity came was to explain the Copernican model. That's factual. And so that's what the conversation should be about. It shouldn't, like when I read the caption here, he says he's going to do all this to gravity. No. I'm saying that the current model's wrong, bro. And if you are so positive I'm a lunatic for saying the current model's wrong, it shouldn't be this huge diversion effort to stay away from that subject. Let's just talk about that. I've conceded that it's observable, that things fall to the ground and has a metrics that is observable and repeatable.
All right.
So that is
so then we can back up to your claim is that the model is wrong.
Yes, the heliocentric model cannot be substantiated.
Okay.
That's
provide your evidence.
Okay. So there's tons of evidence. Well, for most of these evidences, you will just have to dismiss them to coincidence. But I think it's beneficial to the viewer.
Let's skip the ones that are dismissible to coincidence and go with real evidence.
No.
Start with the good ones. Start with your best. Start with solid stuff, not coincidence.
Okay. Has it ever been recreated or observed or repeated that an object due to its mass can cause another object to revolve around it?
We can cause them to attract to each other. Yes.
Has ever in the history of mankind an observable experiment happened where the mass of a singular object has caused another object to revolve around it and been recreated on Earth?
Well, the moon does that all the time.
See, no, that is self-imposing the current metrics of the heliocentric model. The answer is simply no. No, it has never happened, and it never will happen.
Well, we have confirmed that mass attracts mass.
You keep on. This is so semantical. It's insane. I'm asking you very simply, bro. In the history of mankind, has anyone recreated an experiment where an object, due to its mass, has caused another object to revolve around it?
Yeah, in a one-to-one scale, we do that all the time.
Do what?
On a one-to-one scale, that happens all the time.
When does an object revolve around another one due to gravity? Please explain.
The moon. revolves around the sun.
The moon
Satellites.
is you're self-imposing the distance and the metrical relationship of the moon and the Earth.
Oh, but
That
they've all
is
been measured, so that's fine. It's not self-imposed, and it's not
it's a
assumed.
logical fallacy.
It's not a logical fallacy. It's been measured.
Can it be recreated in a controlled experiment on Earth?
It doesn't need to be. We can just observe it.
It doesn't need to be. That's
we
the
can
problem
just observe
here.
it. And
So we just believe it.
And satellites do it all the time too.
So it isn't odd that this experiment can't be recreated, but you know it to be definitive because of your self-imposed metrics of the heliocentric.
It's not
You don't see
myself.
logical fallacy?
It's an observation, right?
No, you have not observed if due to anything other than the consensus metrics of how big the moon is or how far away the moon is. Those are all self-imposed metrics to then substantiate the idea that something can revolve.
They're
around
not
something else.
self-imposed metrics. They're measurements. We've measured the distance to the moon. We've measured the size of the moon.
Have we been to the moon?
Of course we have. But you don't need to go there. You don't need to go there to measure it.
You wouldn't want to go there, I bet, because that's retarded. We obviously didn't go to the moon, but it doesn't even matter. I don't want to debate the moon because that's like laughable.
So you don't need to go somewhere to measure the thing, right? That's
sure, but you have to self-impose one of a few factors, either the size or the distance or the relative relationship with other bodies. Without that, you cannot definitively create metrics. You have to self-impose a starting position.
Yeah, we can measure all of those things. Which one would you like to start with? The distance to the moon?
Sure. 238,000 miles.
Yeah, hold on. I will pull up
NASA.
Pre-NASA. Thank you. 1947. So NASA didn't exist in 1947.
That's correct.
So I put it in the chat and I'll send it to you in here and then I'll share the screen. So here you go. Reflections of microwaves from the moon. Oh, that's not the PDF. There is the PDF. There you go. By Z Bay, 1946. They bounced microwaves off the moon. 1946. So,
Okay.
So they measured the distance. There have been newer ones than that, and they confirm the same information. So, and there's many of those.
Okay,
Right.
So the size of the moon is irrelevant to the conclusion of the distance. Is that what you're claiming?
I'm saying we measured the distance. We started with distance.
Based on self-imposed size.
No, there's no size requirement in measuring the distance to the moon. It's bouncing microwaves off of it, and the amount of time that it takes for those microwaves to bounce back tells us how far away it is.
Okay.
There's
and
no
that's
self-imposed
based on,
anything.
again, assumptions of the atmospheric relationship of those rays and how, I guess, once it reaches the atmosphere into the vacuum, how those rays operate in a vacuum, and then the speed.
Those are not assumptions. Those are also measured.
How is it exactly that those are measured, bro?
Well, bro, people know how fast radar waves move and microwaves move.
In vacuums?
Bro, absolutely. Because
Really?
it's not difficult to test it in
So
a
did
vacuum.
they do this? Did they do the same thing to figure out that the sun was 93 million miles away? They sent waves to it?
They did not do that, and that's you want to change the topic here? Is that it?
No,
or,
I'm just saying.
Would you like to stay on topic?
Yeah, I am saying that the metrics of the moon are self-imposed based on base understandings before the experiment. I would have to read this, man. You just saying that they did something. I would have to read it. I've never read it. No.
And so here's the deal. You're like so certain about all these things, but I don't think you did your research like all the flat earthers say you should do. Right? So I did research, and I found that in 1947 they bounced microwaves off the moon, and they measured it to be
238,000 miles away.
about, yeah.
Okay.
So there.
I would have to read this and see if you're claiming that there isn't some base assumptions required for this equation. I strongly consider that to be unlikely, but I'm not the one that refuses to think I could be wrong. I would have to read this, okay? But the impossibilities of the heliocentric model causes me to believe that the metrics are inaccurate. For example, the sun is 400 times bigger than the moon, but exactly.
All right, so off topic again here.
It's actually not.
Let's stay on topic here. You were talking about the moon, right? And you were, and we're gonna recurse back to where we were before. You were saying that we've never observed gravity causing things to orbit, and I said the moon has been observed to orbit. We know how far away it is because we've measured its distance many times.
It is self-imposing the globular makeup of both bodies and the relationship within.
All right, support that claim.
I would have to read this. You're claiming that it doesn't have any base assumptions required for the experiment, which is highly unlikely. I would have to read it, bro. I haven't read it. So I would have to read it. I can't say you have to substantiate that because I don't know where it would be in the document.
So is it a surprise to you that people have bounced radar off the moon?
No.
Okay,
it doesn't surprise me that one would attempt to measure the moon. No, but if it's operating based off of the assumptions of certain metrics, then it is infallible. It's fallible.
Everything is fallible. There's no question about that. And
what I'm saying is, if the base assumptions are wrong, the entire experiment
claims it's infallible. So you don't have you don't know. All right. So
I have to read it, bro.
Yep. Now, are you aware that they've also bounced lasers off the moon?
I've heard that they put a reflector up there, if that's what you're referencing.
Yeah. Now the cool thing is, they can aim it, and then it doesn't reflect much, and then change it, and it doesn't reflect it much, and then they aim it, and it reflects a bunch. Right. So there is something certainly that reflects differently. But here's another cool one. Let me make sure this is the right one here. They've done it more recently, of course. 32 centimeter wavelength radar mapping of the moon. There it is. Also, not NASA. Not that it matters. But
yeah, it does. They're a provably not credible source.
Yeah, you've not proven anything yet. But here's the deal.
Every time I try to bring something up, you want to cut me off.
This is from Finland here. So, 32 centimeter wavelength. You can have a good bunch of research that I did for you in your notes here. So,
thanks, man.
Now, if you're going to be honest, I hope that you do look at these things. So this is a newer one. So they've done many basically surveys of the moon remotely like that. So, all right. So we know how far the moon is away from us. We know how big it is because this particular one gets some pretty good measurements of the size.
Which is based on the distance, correct?
No, it's based on, well, yeah, of course, the distance, and then you change the angles. And so they've confirmed the distance, and then once you confirm the distance, you can build on that knowledge, and you can sweep back and forth, and you can see how wide it is. Pretty cool.
Sure. If the distance is definitively confirmed, I would have to examine it.
Yeah, you can also look at just simply its angular size. If you know the distance of something and you look at its angular size, then you can also calculate its diameter.
But you have to know the distance.
Yes. Yeah. So
okay.
All right, so we know the distance, we know its size.
You're claiming that.
And so we've now confirmed that we have an orbit.
We actually haven't confirmed the size. Just because you say it again, you're claiming that entire document requires no base assumptions. That I would have to read it to concede that. So I'm not saying I'm right here. I'm not saying that I know you're wrong. I'm also not conceding that we've proven anything. Which I'm not. I know that it sounds like I'm just.
So I don't mind if you say we haven't proven anything, because I'm not claiming that we've proven anything. Science doesn't do that. It finds evidence. And once you have a large amount of evidence for something, you have a large amount of confidence in something. Right? Now you can, with science, disprove things. Right? That's one of the things that science is good at. So,
Okay. Again, being honest, will read that document. I'm particularly intrigued about it because I find it quite unlikely that there's no base assumptions there. You're just claiming that it is the case. I doubt it, but I will read it. Now, the reason probably that I haven't looked that deep into, for example, how they figured out the distance to the moon is because of the impossibilities of the sun-moon relationship, sun-moon-earth relationship, right? So, for example, hopefully you'll actually respond to this. The sun is 400 times the size of the moon, but almost precisely, coincidentally, 400 times further away, and that's the reason that we have eclipses to such a great extent that the diameter of the moon being, I believe, 1,260 miles, 1,259 miles, if it was off 1 mile in either direction at the equator, the eclipse would not happen. The statistical odds of that are a zillion to one. So the very proponents of this idea is they propose the lack of creation or divinity. So I suppose what I'm asking is, do you think that it is just a coincidence that the moon is 400 times smaller than the sun and coincidentally exactly 400 times closer in order for eclipses to happen, and that the equator is within a 1 mile differentiation area on both sides to make
uh,
the eclipse happen?
I don't find any coincidence at all because what you claimed is not correct. They are not that they're not the exact same size.
No,
So
no, they're not. I'm not. They are
so
the
they're
relative same
they're
sizes in
they're,
the
they're
sky to
close to
make
the
the
same
eclipse.
size. So
No, they're almost exactly the same size.
well, the moon varies quite a bit, and the sun varies just a small amount in angular size.
In size.
In angular size, yes.
Okay. So again, you're just going to dismiss it. This is what astrophysicists say. This is what your proponents say. This is what top people in your proponents, your field that you are a proponent of, say that the sun is 400 times bigger than the moon, and coincidentally, almost precisely 400 times further away. And that's the reason that we can have
And what
eclipses.
does that tell us though? What's the
I just
difference?
want you to concede that it's an astronomical coincidence of zillion to one odds.
No, it doesn't matter. And
It doesn't matter.
and are you trying to make a point because odds are big?
That wouldn't happen.
Oh, well, please support that claim.
Okay, repetitive coincidences is not scientific. There are scientific numbers for impossibilities. If you want to add the coincidence of the distance, so according to mainstream science, you couldn't be a very small distance further or closer to the sun for it to be inhabitable here. That alone is a statistical improbability. You're going to add the unrelated improbability of the sizes of the celestial bodies in the sky to that mathematical equation. There is a literal scientific number for impossibility. And once you compile these coincidences, the heliocentric model defies it.
All right, so
you
just think
brush off a zillion to one odds. I just have faith the viewer knows that that's pretty insane.
Pretty insane. That so in some other model, these coincidences are also there. So I don't know why that would have any point at all anyway.
My point is that I am not one to believe in consistent repetitive coincidences.
Yeah, but they exist. So no matter what,
really, a zillion to one odds exist consistent with the improbability of the sustainability of Earth.
But it doesn't change anything just because it's not likely. The unlikeliness of something doesn't mean anything because no matter what the model is, the sun and the moon have similar angular size. And so if you're going to say that the fact that they have similar angular size somehow pushes in one way or the other, you need to somehow say why it does that. That doesn't.
I'm not claiming this is
because if it's a flat Earth and they're the same size, so what? They're the same size. It means no difference.
See, that's what I'm saying. What's more logical, that the sun and the moon? And again, I'm not claiming this to be definitive, objective rebuttal or disapproval of the model. What I'm saying is logically here, you are claiming that it makes more sense, or it's reality, that zillion to one odds happened, as opposed to the more logical deduction, which is that they are the same size, and one comes up in nighttime, and one comes up in daytime. They both provide light for said time of the day,
Actually, the
and they're the
moon,
same size.
the moon's out in the day, dude. Did you not know that?
Okay,
Is this
but the
new?
moon provides light at nighttime, bro.
But it's up at the daytime too, and sometimes it's not out at night. Is this new? Have you not been around? It's up in the daytime.
I've been around. I'm talking about the harmonic nature of the sun and the moon. You're laughing, and you just now said zillion to one odds is realistic.
I don't give a damn about the odds. It
Hopefully
doesn't matter at all.
So, okay. Anyway,
dude.
since you are such a proponent of the Newtonian idea of gravity, do you do concede that space is a vacuum?
No.
Space isn't a vacuum.
That's correct.
Nothing's a perfect vacuum, but it is close to a vacuum. Exactly, I know.
It's very low pressure. There you go.
Exactly. Damn near a vacuum. So have you read, I'm assuming that you've seen my Facebook, you've read the quote Newton has about gravity operating in a vacuum?
I have, yeah.
And so what do you think about his assessment?
I think that he did not understand gravity, and neither did, for example, Snell, when he created his law, Snell's law, that he gets credit for. Neither of them understood the mechanism by which the law that they defined works.
So the creator of gravity had a fundamental misunderstanding of said gravity.
He had a fundamental not understanding of the mechanism. And Snell had a fundamental not understanding of the mechanism. So, in fact, Snell, as well as Descartes, as well as Fermat and Huygens, all worked on what eventually became Snell's law, and not one of them knew the mechanism by which it worked.
And you say that because of the need for the cohesive relationship of gravity and the Copernican model, correct?
Not at all. I'm saying that because it doesn't require an understanding of why for the law to be derived.
But it was a base understanding of how it acts, not why it's there. Yeah, he conceded he didn't know why it was there, and he actually was a believer in a divine source or a creator. But I'm saying this was about his rudimentary understanding or application of said gravity.
Yeah,
it's not about why.
Yeah, it's about why. So here he said, he finished his statement there with, gravity must be caused by an agent acting constantly according to a certain laws. But whether this agent be material or immaterial is a question I have left to the consideration of my readers. He did not provide an answer. He did not know why, and he didn't present a reason why. He just threw up his hand and said, I don't know why, but it works.
I'm not disputing that, though. But since you read the end of the quote, in case someone hasn't heard it, I'm just going to read it. It is inconceivable that inanimate brute matter should, without the mediation of something else, which is not material, operate upon and affect other matter without mutual contact. That gravity should be innate, inherent, and essential to matter, so that one body may act upon another at a distance through a vacuum without the mediation of anything else. By and through with their action and force may be conveyed from one to another, is to me so great an absurdity that I believe no man who has in philosophical matters a competent faculty of thinking can ever fall into it. Gravity must be caused by an agent acting constantly according to certain laws, but whether this agent be material or immaterial, I've left to consideration of my readers, which you read the end part. Again, my point here simply is that the creator of the gravity itself said that it is not conducive in the current application of the Newtonian interpretation of gravity. So that you see how that's somewhat self-contradicting there.
So yeah, he did not create gravity, right? I know that's not what you meant. He derived the formula, and he did not claim to know why. That's it. And of course, since then,
that isn't about why. That's about how.
Okay, fine. But But science has moved on since then, and we have figured things out. So unless he was the last person to ever learn anything new about gravity, I don't really give a damn what he said, because we've moved on
so
from
since
that.
we've learned so much, then why is it? Are you familiar with the concept of dark matter or dark energy?
Yeah, and you're going to get into what we call the exceptions to the law. But go ahead with the straw man. I'm ready.
I'm not strawmanning you. I'm just saying you do understand that literally was created because of lack of understanding of gravity.
It literally
It's
was
lack of understanding
created
of.
because, hold on a second. If anybody watched me debate Gleam, look at this. I did not read all of it. But I did read most of this one here, which is the rotational properties of galaxies with the large range of luminosities and radii from, and then these different ranges, as well as the, I don't know, the article on the lady that wrote this, Vera Rubin, and how she caused a lot of trouble there for stuff by identifying that the rotational speed of galaxies didn't match Newtonian gravity and Einsteinian gravity either. So, but like I said, laws have exceptions, and that is definitely an exception.
Well, that's a huge one. That's a huge one.
Yeah.
That's actually a damning exception.
Does it make gravity not work in our solar system?
Yeah, pretty much. It can only
Pretty
work
much it
with
does
this.
not have any impact on our solar system.
Yes, it literally does. The reason that the idea of dark matter, which is really an inaccurate, misleading term, because matter has, attributable properties, which this concept does not. It is literally needed to exist so that the special relativistic understanding of the solar system can stay intact.
Okay, so where in our solar system does it break down?
Wait, do what?
Where in our solar system does gravity break down then? Where does it not work?
It only works with the concept of the immense majority of the universe containing this dark matter.
Now, where within our solar system does gravity not work? You said it. You said that dark matter causes problems within our solar system. I'm waiting for the evidence.
Yeah, the problem with gravity is that it hasn't been substantiated on the quantum level, which I understand the solar system is obviously a much grander scale than that. But of course, within the universe or the solar system, also quantum levels exist. Also, the inability to ever have observed a graviton, which I'm assuming you know what that is, the particle of gravity, graviton has never been observed. Okay, so the reason that they had to keep the special relativistic understanding is because we don't know how else to explain the celestial bodies. But in order for that to be the understanding of the universe, we have to have this fulfillment, if you will, or the filling in of the empty space with dark matter.
All right, so you still didn't substantiate your claim that dark matter affects our solar system. So just so you know, The God Particle here by Leon Lederman. There you go. He was the director at Fermilab. I read this book 2.5 times. Good book. It's dated now. He does talk about the superconducting super collider they were at the time building in Texas, which has been superseded by the one at CERN, and where they did find not the graviton, but the Higgs boson. But not finding the particle doesn't mean anything. I'm still waiting for you to support your claim that dark matter affects our solar system.
I didn't say that. I said that dark matter is required for the current interpretation of the solar system.
Okay, support that.
This is what physicists.
Go ahead, support that.
I'm basing that assertion on the lead proponents of your model.
Okay, then cite your source.
Okay, I'll have to look up the quote by Neil deGrasse Tyson, which I find hard to believe that you haven't heard it or understand the concept that I'm saying here. I also don't understand exactly how you're disputing it, or maybe I'm missing. Maybe we're just misunderstanding each other. What are you suggesting that dark matter is, or why was it introduced?
Dark matter is a hypothesis to explain the rotation speed of distant galaxies. That's what it's about. So it has no bearing on our solar system.
So it's not
And
because
I've not seen anybody claim that it has a bearing on our solar system.
well, just the universe in general, to apply the relativistic understanding or concept requires there be a fulfilling of the empty space. For lack of a better term, they called it dark matter, which literally, really, it's just what the space that we in no way understand or can attribute any characteristics to. So I feel like we both know that. So I'm not interested in semantical arguments.
Yeah, and so you don't have your citation and anything, so it's kind of a letdown there, but I expect it. So
Okay.
So yeah, so your strawman quantum, your strongman dark matter, but you haven't found the exceptions within our Newtonian frame of reference. So and we've confirmed using Newtonian gravity, our moon orbiting the Earth. We've confirmed using Newtonian gravity. In fact, this is what Newton used a lot, was the orbit of the moons of Jupiter. Him and then Kepler, of course, was the one that started that. And you can actually derive gravity from the formula for gravity from Kepler's laws. This is great. If you guys have seen AB Science, I'm going to post this in here because he derived in his video. Here comes the law of gravitational attraction using Kepler's laws. It's pretty good. It's heavy math, but it's good stuff. I recommend. So so we have substantiated that, and we don't have to do an experiment by your particular likings in order to confirm things, right? So we have confirmed using Newtonian gravity, the orbits of the planets. We use Newtonian gravity to predict the discovery of planets. It's either
Again, coming from some space source, I don't concede to that.
So do you think that they did not discover Neptune?
No, I think that there are celestial bodies, sure, but to equate the prediction of celestial bodies to Newtonian concept is
okay. So how do you
wrong.
explain the discovery of Neptune?
It was seen in the sky. I don't know
the
specifics of Neptune.
So they had identified irregularities in the orbit of Uranus, and they as a result of that, two different people said, you know what, I think there's another planet somewhere, and at this time and on this day, point your telescope here and you might see something. And they saw something. They saw Neptune. That's how they discovered Neptune. It was based on the unusual orbit, or the perturbations in the orbit of Neptune, of Uranus, sorry. And that's how they found Neptune. Gravity.
And okay, so the discovery of Neptune, you're saying, was dependent on the Newtonian understanding of the universe, correct?
Yes.
Okay, I don't know about that. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I do, but I would have to fact check that. I also, I don't know. Yeah, I have to look into that. I'm assuming you're saying, right, that's the first time that was ever observed. Neptune was ever observed.
That is the first time, yes.
Okay, I would have to look into it. I don't know that there was some magical prediction made.
It was
but
mathematical, not magical. Now, here's a cool thing. The orbit of Mercury had a similar problem. The orbit of Mercury was unusual, right? And that's the closest planet to the sun. And they based on their experience with Neptune, the people said, well, let's see if we can figure this out. Maybe there's another planet that's modifying Mercury's orbit. sorry, Jason McCormick. He always says happy concave week, everyone. He's out. Thanks, Jason. He's a concaver. He's funny. So, all right, I was saying about Mercury that they had looked at the orbit of Mercury. They discovered that it was not matching straight Newtonian stuff, and they looked then for another planet, and they named it. Actually, they named it Vulcan, but they never found it, and so people like, what was going on with that? Well, this is great. After Einstein put out his stuff on general relativity, they tested the orbit of Mercury using modifications based on the Einsteinian modification to it, and they discovered that predicted Mercury's orbit.
Basically his idea was just that anything can happen in layman's terms. The idea was that
all of that, and you just say anything can happen in layman's terms.
No. What I'm saying is you just conceded that it wasn't cohesive with the Newtonian idea. Then you said they applied the Einsteinian principle or relativistic principle to predict it, but his actual entire premise was that anything can happen in layman's terms. That's what the relativistic argument is. Every single action or movement is relative to the other.
Really?
It's reciprocation.
Oh, this is new.
That's not what it is.
Oh, please tell me. Go on.
So wait, I'm trying to understand here. You're saying that Neptune was predicted based on the Newtonian principle, but then that principle wasn't accurate when predicting Mercury.
The perturbations in the orbit of Mercury were not due to another planet. They were due to because Einsteinian things don't modify enough in regular frames of reference. You need to be moving very fast or have very high gravity. So because Mercury is close to the sun, the Einsteinian things make a difference. So and yeah. Sorry, I'm reading the chat. I should not. So it's they confirmed the general relativity by testing, applying it to the orbit of Mercury, and found that the orbit of Mercury was predicted using Einsteinian equations.
Okay, I would have to look into that. I know that you're attempting to make me basically look ignorant, and technically I am ignorant of that subject because I've never heard of that. Bringing up these anomalies of situations that I don't know, and you conceding yourself that you've done this for years now, studying all these different things, and so you being able to bring up some independent, experiment or prediction utilizing some theory based on your proclamation, that's what was used, then should mean that means you're right, and special relativity has been proven, but it hasn't. And are you claiming that special relativity has been? I know you say nothing's been proven. So are you claiming that special relativity has been
confirmed?
Pretty well substantiated.
It has been confirmed. Absolutely, yes.
Okay. Yeah. I don't know about that.
So did you do your research then? Right. So you spoke about Michelson Morley.
Predicted when it wasn't conducive with the Newtonian principle. No.
So did you look?
See, this is the point. There are anomalies that aren't consistent with the scientific number of impossibility, which you, listing your credentials earlier, should understand that's a real thing. And you just brush it off saying, well, that actually doesn't matter. And then you laughed. So that doesn't change the statistical improbability or, in fact, impossibility reoccurring of the current model, which is my point. Also, what you brushed off was that never has it been recreated in any form of observation that some form of a body has created a relationship with another body revolving around it. And then you say that the moon, I'm asking if an experiment can recreate it. You're self-imposing the metrics and the globular makeup of both of the celestial bodies to impose that the moon has done that. You're self. I know you understand.
I'm
what
not
I'm saying,
self-imposing.
but I know
They're
that you're
based
smart.
on they're based on measurements and prior evidence. Everything is based on prior evidence, right? So you can do your regression to find all back all the as far as you go until you're satisfied that all of these things were measured. It wasn't just an invented thing, and then there's with no supporting evidence for it.
Well, yeah, of course. In order for this to be what's consensus or subscribed to, it has to be consistent with what we see. I'm not disputing that. What I'm disputing is the metric self-imposed on the system. It's self-fulfilling. So when I ask you, in order to independently verify the idea of the relativistic relationship of the Earth and the supposed rotation of the moon, and etc., the revolutions of the Earth around the sun, you would have to, in my estimation or opinion, be able to repeat that experiment or give some form of tangible observation to do so. You simply say, well, no, you don't, but I disagree. And I'm saying, it's
So yeah,
quite odd.
you have created a straw man experiment that you're demanding be done, and so no, you don't get to demand the way that an experiment is done, right? Science doesn't work that way.
Okay, here's what I'm saying. Well, the way science does work is it is consistent across the board. In order for you to substantiate or definitively claim gravity, you would have to have observed the particle that makes gravity work or operates within gravity, being the graviton, has literally never been
That's a
observed.
straw man there.
Okay.
So that's not how a law works. A law works by observation. You look at the observations, and you create a law based on those observations, right? So demanding that a particular way happen, that's fine. Why don't you first provide your absolutely perfect everything explained version of it if you're going to be that nitpicky about it, right? But of course you won't. You have nothing
That was actually a
at
straw
all
man
because look, this is your explanation right here. This is all you have so far for why things go down. You have nothing at all.
density and buoyancy is observable and repeatable.
Yeah,
That's
but
why
it
things go
doesn't.
down.
It's not a force. Density
Because
does not
you are
accelerate
the need for a
things.
force due to the self-imposed understanding of the metrics and the relationships between the celestial bodies.
You like saying
That's the reason the force
self-imposed,
is
huh?
needed.
So here's
Yes.
here's the deal. Things fall 9.8 meters per second squared. They just do, right? And you don't have an explanation for it. You say density, but density is not a force. What is the force? There is a force, right? If we look at F equals,
Why is a downward force needed?
it just happens, right? There
Why can't
is
it be the
a force.
reciprocation of the upward force?
Why can't it what?
Why could it not be a residual reciprocation of the upward force?
Because that's just word salad.
No, it's literally not. There's a residual reciprocation of the action coming from Earth. That is what makes things go down. I explained this in the beginning.
Yeah.
Okay,
It's still just words.
Sure, it's word salad
It
because
doesn't make sense.
It does make sense.
But
You
if it
need
does,
a force
if it's
to
real,
explain-
then what's the equation for it so we can test your hypothesis?
I'm sure Tesla has an equation for it, bro. I don't
Tesla
have
does.
an.
Yeah. Oh, it's hidden
This is
somewhere.
hilarious.
Yeah.
You side yourself with consensus cult of scientific equations, and then you think it makes you
But
right.
here's the deal. It works. The equation that I have works.
Yes, it's a no. It's a measure. Yeah, it's a measurement of what we observe, and then the equation was applied to the measurable speed. So it is self-fulfilling. That is what math does. That is not in any way prove your theory of a force operating. It is just a mathematical representation of the theory of the force. And again,
oh my,
logically, gravitons
the
would
things
have
you
been,
don't understand
would be observed if gravity was real. We would also observe the effects of gravity on the quantum level. We would also be able to recreate gravity on Earth when it comes to a body acting on another body and causing it to go into a movement around it.
Well, tell you what, let's look at that to see mass causing a movement on another mass, right?
To revolve around a mass.
No. I'm not going with your
course not.
only it must be your experiment. I'm sorry, no. It's about mass attracting mass, and that's how it works.
Magnetism, electromagnetism creates reactions as well. So the fact that you're going to call it gravity doesn't matter. The current connotation of gravity is literally the sun is causing us due to gravitational pull revolve around it. So to substantiate that application of the gravitational force, it would be recreated. In my opinion, science is observable, not a theory. Okay, so, and yes, there are scientific theories. I'm not saying that if it's not perfect, you can't. That's the point of science. I obviously support the idea of testing through things and working through things. I know that we're learning as we go. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is to pretend it's not odd that for decades, nothing ever in observable history has created an object to revolve around it due to mass is pretty far-fetched to me. And you're just brushing it off like it's nothing. And you, being an intelligible person, are well at articulating that, but that doesn't change what I'm saying.
All right, well,
it's very
here we go.
for me to
I'm going to
substantiate.
substantiate.
Need for observation.
I'm going to substantiate my claims. You don't.
Okay.
You don't do that, but I will. Right. So here is one example. This is a girl in her dorm room testing gravity. This is it's like it's very simple, but it's pretty cool that she did that. And we see here because it goes back and forth a little bit, and then she let's see where she actually does the.
That
formula.
is pretty cool. That's pretty cool, bro. Here's what I'm asking.
All right,
see if you're going to be intellectually honest about this.
Here's. Hold on.
Could that reaction? Sorry, I'll watch it. Sorry.
She found a 3-degree angle between no masses there, the bowling balls, and the masses there. So that caused a 3-degree shift. So what do you think?
Okay. Here's what I'm asking, and we'll see if there's intellectual honesty here. Could that reaction there happen with a force that isn't called gravity if it's electromagnetic inherent in the matter of those objects?
Electromagnetic. Then you would need to there would be a voltage differential, right?
Electromagnetic energy in the sense that it is inherent in matter. Matter itself radiates or emits electromagnetic energy.
Can you support that? What meter do you use to measure all matter? Say that again.
I'm sure what I'm saying. Okay, I subscribe to Tesla's dynamic theory of gravity, which was
I want to see measurements, please.
Probably for no reason, probably because it was fake. The government probably went and suppressed his technologies and the theory of gravity that he had because it was fake. But what I'm saying is he believed that due to the relationship of matter being inherent with energy being inherent in matter, and its relationship with ether, it propels or exerts electromagnetic energy. So two objects react to each other because of electromagnetic energy. And also he claimed to have made 50 million volts with this type of ideology, self-efficient energy that powered automobiles, and it was suppressed by the government. So I'm trying to understand, is that not odd to you?
So no evidence then. That's the problem.
Wait.
You just have
what?
Claims with no evidence.
Yes,
all of this
right
that you've done is claims with no evidence.
What do you mean there's no evidence? Are you disputing electromagnetic energy?
I am disputing that electromagnetic energy causes everything to attract everything else.
I didn't say that.
Well, why did this torsion bar twist?
Oh, because I believe that these two objects have electromagnetic relationship with the ether encompassing what's in the middle.
And can you support that with evidence?
We're watching it happen, and that's my interpretation, and it's an adequate interpretation. You're laughing, but can you substantiate the fact that this is gravity?
Is it directly proportional to the mass of the object?
What, electromagnetic energy?
Is this force, this attractive force, directly proportional to the mass of the objects?
I would say yes.
Oh, so we're back to and is it inversely proportional with the distance between them?
Sure.
Okay, so that's just gravity. You've just made a new name for gravity right there.
That's what you're calling it. That's what you're calling it.
Okay, so let's call it droppity instead. Mass
This is so
attracting
funny
mass is
because
called dropity.
this is a semantical argument, man. I'm not going to keep doing it. It's circular. This is a semantical argument.
But you
of what you're calling what's
described
happening.
gravity right there. Mass attracting mass. Directly proportional to the mass. Larger mass, larger attraction.
Again, the connotation of gravity that I am disputing is that it can cause a body to revolve around another body. You had to turn to the moon, bro. So you're saying that in centuries, decades, 500 years, never has an individual been able to recreate that, but you're claiming to know that
what you're saying is then, because Kepler's laws are all about gravity causing things to rotate, orbit around each other. So you're saying that Kepler's laws don't work.
I'm saying that they've never been recreated on Earth.
So what? They've been recreated all over the place.
So what? That's what science is, bro. That's what science is.
Science doesn't do what you want it to do, bro.
No,
science does whatever the hell it wants to do, and it'll reproduce an experiment by observing it happen in space. That's completely valid science.
Again, that's based on self-imposed metrics.
It's measurements. What is self-imposed then? What is self-imposed about the moon?
Are you claiming that all the metrics of the heliocentric model are accurate?
I'm claiming no. I'm claiming that the moon orbits the Earth, and that we can confirm that using Kepler's laws and Newton's laws. There you go.
That's based on the self-imposition.
Please be specific with what has been self-imposed.
The sizes and the shapes
They've
of
been measured.
The Earth. What?
They've been measured. So before any of this stuff, all these things have been measured.
Which you're going back. I have to look into the fact that you say that the size or the distance of the sun or the distance of the moon has been measured. Because, of course, for example, the distance of the sun has changed 6 times in the last century. Right now, it's 93 million miles away. That is literally a guess based on self-imposed metrics. So the distance self-imposes the size. The size self-imposes the distance.
These are not self-imposed. These are measurements. And your ignorance of these measurements doesn't mean that they didn't happen. Right?
Okay.
So clearly, you've not done your research because you didn't know that we have measured the distance to the moon. Now, you also obviously don't know that we've measured the distance to the sun. What was that?
I obviously would know that they have claimed to have done that.
Okay, and then you didn't look into it? So you dismissed the evidence by not looking into it.
No, I said I've not heard the 1940 experiment you referenced, and I would look into it. And I do know that
all right, so here's the deal. All of these things that you think are self-imposed are not self-imposed, they're measured.
Okay, cool. How did they find out the sun was 93 million miles away?
They measured it.
How?
Now, I'm going to give you evidence, and then you're going to wave it away because it's inconvenient.
No, I'm just trying to understand. It's changed 6 times in the last century. So which time did they measure it? Just the most recent time?
Here's one here where they bounced waves off of it. This is from a viewer. I will pull up the one that I prefer.
Waves 93 million miles through a vacuum and then into the atmospheric conditions of Earth.
All right. So using the transit of Venus, they did that. So here you go. I will send that to you. There are many ways that people have measured the distance to the sun. And going with the straw man of it's changed 6 times. No, what happened is they didn't do very good measurements until recently. So,
fair, yeah, convenient.
But all of the recent ones have been quite good. So let's see.
I'm just trying to understand why you're on YouTube if you have such a plethora more understanding and substantial definitive backing or confidence in these metrics than the top astrophysicists. I must be missing something. Like, for example, Michio Kaku, in cosmology, we're off by a factor of 10 to the 120th. That's 120 zeros after it.
Is he sitting there next to you?
Do what?
Is he sitting there next to you?
No.
Okay, then don't talk about him.
Oh, so don't talk about.
You're talking to me. You're talking to me, right? So
okay, so are you saying that Michio Kaku's wrong?
I'm saying that he's not present in this debate.
Oh, I'm referencing different
Okay,
scientists'
so
thesis.
if you're gonna, you, he's a public guy. So if you're gonna reference his thesis, please send me the link, and then we'll pull up his thesis. But I think probably
I'm
what
referencing his
what
book.
you
I'm
were
referencing his book.
referencing is an interview or something that he gave on TV. So
Okay, so you're saying you do disagree with it, though. I'm asking
I'm
you. I'm not
saying
saying that this is
he's
proof.
not
This is his
here.
opinion.
If you're gonna bring up
That
something he
reject
said in
all
an
damning
interview on
pieces of
TV,
evidence.
then I don't care about that. If you want to bring up a thesis, then I'm very interested.
I have faith. I know that your viewers are obviously biased and won't be honest, but I can guarantee you the viewers have seen you deflect numerous things, including, now I admit when I don't know something. You have not done that once. You have not conceded that something seems unlikely or something is somewhat of a detriment to your current model one time, even to the extent of something being a zillion to one odds. You're like, oh, no, that could happen.
It,
Well, okay, bro. What I'm asking you,
you're just,
it
of
defies the
course,
scientific number of possibility more than once.
you didn't
Do you
even
not
show me how you
subscribe to the
calculated your zillion to one odds.
what?
How did you calculate the zillion to one odds? Show your math.
I took that from someone else. Yeah. Okay. What are you suggesting at the odds of that be?
Do you think that Michio Kaku is 100% correct? You want to go with everything he says?
No, I don't believe that. I
Okay.
believe that he
All
is
right.
making
So
the point
you're gonna
that we are
cherry pick.
drastically
Got it. Let me find
uninformed
cherry
about
pick.
the
Hold on.
cosmological makeup of the Earth, and
I'm
I'm
looking
also
for
claiming
cherry
he's
pick.
probably significantly more informed to make that statement than you.
I already have.
3,000 subscribers on YouTube. This dude's a leading astrophysicist, and he's a proponent of the model that you claim to subscribe to. So you just wanted to miss something that doesn't work. Leading astrophysicists admit that we don't know majority of the cosmological makeup. Are you disputing that?
So what? We're talking
So
about the
what?
Earth. We're talking about Newtonian gravity, which is nothing to do with far, far away galaxies.
I'm talking about the general heliocentric makeup.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
Anyway, we'll just bring up something else because
Yeah,
you're just going to
I don't
deflect
know
on
what.
me.
Yeah.
So, okay. Are you familiar with the cosmic microwave background radiation?
Sure.
Okay. Explain to me how that doesn't hold any weight.
How that doesn't hold any weight.
Yeah, in the sense that its conclusions lead towards a geocentric existence.
Please present your evidence.
Okay, I'll just send it to you. You said you knew about it. I don't.
Well, this is your point, and so
Sure. Okay.
when it's your turn to bring up a point, you don't just ask me a question and make me defend it, right?
NASA performed 3 different tests on the range of 1989 to 2009, testing the cosmic microwave radiation, and they concluded that that it shows a geocentric makeup of the feedback of the radioactive waves, the radiation waves, and that they called it the axis of evil because it goes against all of the consensus of the Copernican model. Which part is being disputed, and I'll link it.
Okay, I'll bring it up on the screen.
I'm just gonna look it back up. I don't even. Oh, maybe this is it. This is just an article, but whatever.
Earth may be the center of the universe. So this is an article. Is there? All right. So you're going with NASA's Planck probe.
Yeah, because I mean, I want to use your. I assume you to refer this to be valid.
I just want to make sure. Are you going to be consistent? Are you going to reject some things from NASA and accept some things just because they fit your model or not? Is that what you're going to do?
No, I'm using your own leading proponents against you.
Okay.
That doesn't mean I have to subscribe to their beliefs. I know that evidence shows geocentrism purely based on the annual resetting of the celestial bodies. You have to say, oh, it's so big, it's so far away, or maybe it just resets. Oh, it's just a coincidence, zillion to one odds, or maybe they're just the same size. I am clearly on the more founded logical side of this argument. You're just okay. Well, everyone can see that.
All right, so what does this say then?
that the test from 1989 2009, 3 separate tests, which they continue to redo because they were not content with the initial results, show that the radiation feedback shows and insinuates strongly that the Earth is geocentric relative to the rest of the universe.
Okay.
The article is right there. I'm not sure which part is being disputed exactly.
Well, interesting.
NASA's Kobe, WMAP, and Planck, 1989, 2001, 2009 satellites.
Yeah, so this is a geocentric proponent. It looks like, huh?
No, this is NASA's readings.
No, this article is a geocentric article.
Well, I actually think it is pretty non-biased, saying that this goes against the Copernican ideal and it's giving scientists a headache, and that they've named it the axis of evil because it went against all previously accepted scientific and cosmological theories of Copernican cosmological model.
Okay, but this isn't a. This isn't.
So you want a different? You want?
No, I was hoping for the actual published the publication from NASA, because this here then goes on to talk about they're trying to support that the author of this, that the Earth is the center of the universe,
and it's based off of the deduction of the results.
Yeah.
So are you questioning the results? Are you saying that that's a false article?
I've not seen the results. So do you have the
So you
results?
never heard of the cosmic?
Yeah, but do you have the actual? Could you send the article, the actual publication, right, from NASA, right? So, but I do appreciate. Yeah, I'll link this in here, people, so you can.
Figured you could at least concede that this is quite intriguing, at the least. But no, of course, it's just off the article.
It is well. So what I have done is I have given you the peer-reviewed published publications, right? So here,
I'm assuming space.com is no good.
Here you go. For example, this one here. This is the actual publication.
Sure. Yeah. I didn't even think this would be disputed. I didn't go to each. It's 3 separate satellite tests. I mean, I will. I got the laptop today and.
Yeah, and I do appreciate you you conceding that satellites exist, and of course that would be an extra experiment, a man-made experiment, outside of the previously occurring satellites, so like the moons. So there we go. We have your experiment of orbits.
No, actually. High altitude does not equate to beyond low Earth orbit satellites. You know, that's your connotation. And again, I'm just using your own. I think that this is damage control because people are starting to realize that surely due to logical deduction of the annual resetting of the celestial bodies. I know that's why
annual resetting of the celestial bodies. Oh my!
You think we went to the moon, and so if you want to laugh at me because you think. Really?
Of course we went to the moon. And Charlie Duke, who was on Apollo 16, spoke at our church. I couldn't go. My son was at a football game. He was in a football game, so I couldn't go. I was sad, but Charlie Duke came, and do you know that he goes around speaking at churches? That's what Charlie Duke does.
So that means we went to the moon?
No. I think it's just cool that
I'm assuming that you just haven't non-biasedly examined the moon landing.
Of course I have.
Have you ever even Can you be honest and say, have you ever truly entertained maybe the moon landing was fake?
Sure.
You have, and you've researched it and came to the conclusion that it was genuine and authentic.
Absolutely.
And that from 238,000 miles away, the president called the moon through the Van Allen radiation belts, and that towards the end of the conversation, there was no delay.
No.
So have you seen the video where it's the timing in between the conversations is off towards the end? You haven't seen that?
No, but if you wanted to send that, I can't do that now because the audio won't work for you. I have seen that claim plenty, but.
So he did call the moon from a landline 238,000 miles away, though.
No, that's a lie, and you believe that lie because you're gullible.
So he didn't talk to the astronauts?
He did, but he didn't talk to them through a landline, and that's not the claim.
Well, he was on a landline phone from
He
what
was
I
on a
remember.
landline. Do you think that maybe he could have called
That's what I said.
another landline somewhere else and then they connected it to a satellite? Maybe, just maybe that's what they did. Did you look into it and do your own research, or did you just believe what some person claimed, and then because it matched your bias, you just accepted
I'm just
it?
saying, no, I'm just saying the moon landing is so demonstrably ridiculous to me
Okay,
that I
so
didn't
you're not addressing my question.
what no, I don't I'm assuming that you're saying that's what happened. I don't even know if that's the official explanation. Is that the official explanation?
So you
Or are
did
you just
okay.
saying what if this
My question was, did you do your research? And you've answered it with you did not do your research because you don't even know what the claim is. You went with the complete straw man that they talked to the moon over a landline, which is absolutely stupid and irresponsible for anybody to even say, and it tells me you didn't do any research on it. So thank you for confirming that you did zero research on that. So now,
No, I
don't be
just
coming to
saw the
me
footage
saying
of
I
him
didn't
talking
do
on a
my
landline.
research.
Do
Okay?
you believe they live time broadcasted the moon landing from 238,000 miles away?
Sure.
And it had no issues going through Van Allen radiation.
Why would it have issues going through?
I don't know. Apparently, humans would have a problem going through it. I would
But
seem it pretty logical.
are you aware that humans have figured out how to shield radiation?
But why haven't we gone back and they say that's the reason that we have it?
They don't say
We
that's
can't
the reason that
safely.
we haven't. Again, you didn't
They
do
say
your
we cannot
research.
safely.
You
They say
believed
that we
what somebody
cannot
else told you.
safely. Do what?
You believed what somebody else told you.
No, I listened to the NASA dude say it.
Yeah, and you
It's
heard what
on.
you wanted to hear, right? And are you aware of how computers work and how radiation affects them?
I'm aware that my iPhone has more memory in it than
Okay, so no.
NASA's
All right.
entire
That's a no.
facility.
Okay. Thank you. You don't understand
Wait,
computers.
wait, wait.
That's
What did
fine.
you ask me
It's
about
not your
how
field.
computers work?
Because computers on spaceships going through the radiation belt would be affected.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know how they might be affected?
Sure, the radiation would mess up the mechanics of the spacecraft. What I'm asking is how they do that in
No.
1969.
No.
It wouldn't. It wouldn't.
Not the mechanics, the electronics of a computer. Now, in 1969, the memory was what kind of memory? So you've done your research, so you'll know this. What kind of memory did computers have in 1969?
I listened to NASA people saying this is what I'm saying.
No.
I
What
listened to
kind of
NASA
memory?
say,
Now, you claimed that it would mess up the stuff. What kind of memory did computers have in 1969?
I don't know. I know
Okay,
that
they
according
had
to
core
NASA
memory.
sources-
Hold on. Core memory, which is tiny little iron rings with wires going through it, vertically, horizontally, and diagonally, both directions, right? That's how memory worked. And it is magnetic, right? So it uses the hysteresis of iron to induce a charge on a magnetic field, on a ring by sending current through multiple at the same time. Then that has a charge, a magnetic charge one way or the other, positive or negative, north or south, depending on 1 or 0. Those are not affected by radiation. Okay, now, computers today, phones today have small capacitors in them, which is an electrical charge. So when radiation hits a capacitor, it induces a charge on that and it will change the value of that memory. Right? So now, modern computers do have electrically or error correcting code memory, ECC memory, and they have to now.
and they would be affected by radiation.
And they are affected by radiation. So you need to shield them. You need to have more error correction, and you need to test all of that. Because all of this stuff today, they're not going to use the 1969 computers. They're going to use modern computers. So you need to make sure all of it works. Now, there are things that, for example, IBM makes hardened CPUs and hardened RAM for use in satellites. Those are not specifically qualified to go through the Van Allen belts like that. So those types of things have to be done. You need to go to all your chip manufacturers and say, we need to have hardened things that are hardened more than before, right? They need to be hard to go through the radiation that's higher than what is in low Earth orbit. All of this stuff isn't easy to do, and it's very expensive. And then you need to qualify
Well, we give them
all of
$60
these
million
things.
a day. I figured that they'd be the budget
You
should
don't
be pretty
you don't know what their budget is, apparently, right? They don't just They don't just have a slush fund that does whatever they want, whatever you want them to do, right? It's allocated.
Of course, it's administered.
It's allocated. So when they say we want to
course.
go back to the moon, they don't just get a dip into that slush fund and say, boom, IBM, make us tomorrow the chip, right?
Sure. Sure, I'm not
So
saying that.
it's not easy. They stopped doing it. They mothballed all that stuff, and they have to start over. And they're not going with 1960s computers. They're going with modern computers.
Okay, so did you hear? I'm sure you've heard the interview with Don Pettit.
Of course.
And so there's nothing odd to the quote of, "I would go back to the moon in a nanosecond." The problem is we destroyed that technology, and it's
Absolutely.
too painful a process to build it back. That's not odd at all.
Mothballed. That is completely normal, because all of the stuff in 1972, when the Congress said, here you get approval for the space shuttle, and we're not going to approve Apollo. So all of the Apollo stuff is parked, right? And so what are you going to do? What are you going to do with that technology? It gets mothballed, and you're not going to use it anymore, right?
The most important technology in mankind history, arguably.
It's not important anymore because you're not using it, right? So
it must be important if it could efficiently go there, and we still cannot. I do understand your explanation. I understand your explanation.
But as soon as you stop working on it, it's out of date, right? And they don't have a budget now to maintain and keep that current, right? So the control computers that they had in the Apollo module that landed on the moon, they stopped working on it in 1972, right? And now it's 2019. They haven't touched it since then. They haven't kept it up to date. They have to start.
No, they destroyed
scratch.
it. They destroyed it.
Yes.
Okay.
Are you going to pay people money every year to maintain it, and knowing that you're probably not going to use it anyway because it's already out of date?
Is it odd that all of the telemetry data was missing?
Did you do your research on that?
Most of the telemetry data was missing or over-reported, and then some of it was found because an intern bought it for $219.
There you go. And so why does that matter? Is that just a straw man? If I showed you all the...
Why does it matter? It's the biggest experiment, it's biggest mankind.
Here's the deal. That is a straw man that you just parroted from somebody else, because here's the deal, and here's how I know that it is. If I produced right now for you the telemetry data, we'd say, oh, we went.
Wait, no, I didn't say that. What I'm saying is just that doesn't add up to making sense of the biggest...
It absolutely adds up, because why the hell do you care about telemetry data for something that already happened?
Because people were automatically going to question it due to the proponent or the component of it being in a race against our ideological enemy. It is the biggest feat in mankind history. That would go straight
of all the things
to a museum.
Is the telemetry data the stuff that you think really matters? Why is that what matters? Here's what happened.
Would substantiate that we win.
Some denier found that data was missing and has now hinged everything on that. Well, of course, who would not keep the telemetry data? No, that's not really that important.
I'm just going to let you keep this shucking and jiving these things, though. So, of course, it's not odd that there was no hesitancy of the American government to live feed this very dangerous feat either. And in addition, what videoed the lunar module leaving the moon?
Are you going to go with that? You going to go?
I'm just asking. I'm sure there's an official explanation.
You've not done the research on that?
No, because that's not like a main part of my argument.
Okay.
I just know
bring up something real, because you're just going off of ignorance there. Okay.
Ignorance is okay. Did the U.S. government give the Netherlands or Holland a fake moon rock?
No.
So it wasn't tested to be petrified wood.
There was petrified wood, but it was not given to anybody in Holland or the Netherlands by America.
So you didn't
do your research on that one either.
I did read where it said that the government, I believe of the Netherlands, said that an gifted moon rock was tested to be petrified wood.
That is correct. They found petrified wood in something labeled as moon rock, but it came out of a private collection. You didn't look that up, did you? You haven't researched anything. Here's what happened. Hold on. Austin, here's what happened. You found something that confirmed your bias, and you went with it, and you didn't research it. That's what happened. Because you loved that idea so much. And I hear that same dumb argument from everybody. But nobody actually looked it up. So here's your homework, Austin. Look up what actually happened. Look up the real story behind that petrified moon rock.
Sure, I will. Sure.
Okay.
So I know that you think that this is because of confirmation bias, but I can assure you, I would much prefer the country I live in that I think is the best country in the world.
If you did, then you would have done your research on that one.
No, just the discrepancies of the fact they admit that we can't go back now, which I know you can explain it away all you want to, because of the technology got better. And now, even though it got better, it's still more vulnerable. You can dismiss the fact that he called the moon landing live time in a live feed 230,000 miles away. You can dismiss the fact that in 7 years, after JFK said we'd go in 8 years, they couldn't get to low Earth orbit. But on the 8th year, we miraculously not only got to low Earth orbit, but we successfully got way beyond that and successfully got back. And in fact, we were so confident in that ability that we did it on a live feed. Okay? You're asking me to, like, I'm not claiming I can demonstrably prove a negative. I'm claiming that it is consistent or it is repetitive inconsistencies that you're just going to have to dismiss to happenstance or not a big deal, or of course they would erase all the evidence of it. Of course, have you seen the footage of them inside this spaceship taping the Earth through the window?
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Have you watched the original or just the one that's got the commentary that leads you down the garden path that you want to go down?
It doesn't matter. The visual alone. I don't even know what commentary you're referencing.
Okay.
So they didn't attempt
So it confirmed your bias. Therefore, you watched it. You didn't watch the source video. You watched the edited one that leads you down the garden path. Again, it's bias confirmation that you're seeking. So,
did they change the visuals of the video?
Did they change?
Is that what you're claiming?
No.
Are you claiming they doctored the video?
I'm claiming that they had a voiceover and that they edited it. So they editing,
doctored the actual footage.
In editing, you can make an awful lot of things happen. So
okay, what about the picture from the moon where, when contrasted at different levels, it shows a copy and paste box?
Well, please cite that.
I would have to be able to screen share and do it myself, where I paste. Are you saying you've never seen that?
Here's what happened. You didn't research that one either, because I have.
Okay. Well,
do you want to go down that path? Because you didn't do that research either.
I heard someone that believes in the moon landing just the other day. I forgot his name. He's a physicist. Say, well, people have created this conspiracy about the moon landing because of the contrast levels on this picture. So, sure, I didn't do diligent research on that because I've already kind of come to the conclusion logically.
Yeah, you already confirmed your bias, so you're not going to look into anything that might contradict your bias. I got it.
No. See,
so go to the original image. The original image, not the copy that somebody sent, not something you got off a website. Go to the original image and do that testing on the original image. You know what you're going to find?
Okay.
Somebody lied to you.
I guess that it's not there.
You're going to find that somebody lied to you.
Okay.
Because I did it.
I'll have to do it.
I went to the original.
Okay. So, again, my argument is much more of a logical argument, and I've seen this entire time that you'll just dismiss these, just like the repetitive coincidences of the heliocentric model metrics.
I'm explaining.
Well, I understand, and I do appreciate you responding to these at least, instead of, if the conversations were more like this, then there would be more of a middle ground, right? Where you can substantiate what you're saying, and I am misled on things. I appreciate that. But my problem here is every time that I am bringing a form of an argument that is just a logical deduction argument, you act as if that's null and void. It is not relevant. So when I bring up the repetitive coincidences of the metrics of the heliocentric model, that doesn't matter. And I'm like, they destroyed all the evidence, the telemetry evidence of the moon landing. That doesn't matter. Of course they would do that. oh well, we've never been back, and no one else has ever gone. So we're more advanced in 1969 than every other country is in 2019. Oh yeah, of course we are. That doesn't matter. The fact that my iPhone has a higher processing ability than computers, significantly higher than they did back in the day. That doesn't matter. Oh no, they went with according to astronauts, something to do with they just had a number input on their computers. That's what I believe Neil Armstrong said. And so most of my evidence, or not most of the reason I believe that the moon landing is sketchy, is coming from NASA themselves. Or when I watch them sit there after they got on the moon landing and they look like they're about to cry. Or whenever they're asked questions and then one says, "Oh, we couldn't see stars." "Oh, well, we could see stars." He nudges them. "Oh, yeah, we couldn't see stars that I remember." These are things
Okay.
that because you can say, "Can you
Another
prove
one you didn't.
know
Another one. Hold on. That stars thing. Another one you didn't research. So all right. So to review all of these things
What?
here, none of those are evidence. Super. Okay. So
Yeah,
it's been 2 hours, and
yeah.
unfortunately,
Here, I'll just go there. I'll just finish this up. Basically,
yeah.
my arguments were, if gravity's real, why can't it be recreated? Of course, we've never discovered a graviton, which would definitively prove gravity. It can't be observed on the quantum level. The cosmic microwave background radiation and largely insinuates geocentrism. The Michelson-Morley, we've talked about that. Nature abhors a vacuum. I personally don't subscribe to the idea that there could be a pressurized system linear to a vacuum. I also find it hard to wrap my mind around the idea of rockets working in a vacuum without a medium to reciprocate the reaction, like the third law of thermodynamics.
That actually Newton's laws. You didn't research that either. Keep going.
What did I say?
It's Newton's laws that make rockets work in a near vacuum. So
What the third?
Keep going.
Okay. And is Earth's atmosphere spinning independently of Earth's rotation?
Is it spinning independently?
I was asking if that is the case, and of course the mainstream idea is that it is not. Of course, if it was, then towards the top of the atmosphere, the velocities would increase because of fluid dynamics. But the mainstream idea is that it doesn't, and then you have to take into account, well, why doesn't that affect plane travel if the atmosphere is moving independent of the Earth? Which I know you think that's just a normal generic argument.
It's moving with the Earth because of friction.
But it actually has an independent movement according to consensus. Are you saying that they move?
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. And then pilots are trained with what's called a target generation facility, which operates off a flat, non-rotating surface, and it negates the gravity vector. Which, why would you negate the gravity factor if it was there? It would just be inefficient. Of course, the countless documents that I didn't even get to because we went down the wormhole of all of these semantical arguments. The firmament document from 1957, where the U.S. I'm sure you've seen it if you looked at my Facebook, where they admit that the USSR.
I debated Nathan Roberts, and so I prepped that one. Did you know that was just a doctorate dissertation defense from Russia? It's just the listing of the different topics and a summary of the dissertation. That's what that is.
It says the approximation methods were proven accurate based on the assumption.
Are you aware that the word firmament means sky? That's what it means. So,
is that what it means?
That's what it means. Until the modern flat Earth movement, firmament was the King James era word for sky.
Of all kind, that's not what it's meant.
What's that?
And then the history of mankind, that's not what it meant. In Hebrew, that's not what it means.
What's the Hebrew word?
I don't know. I just know that I've looked up the Greek.
So you made the claim without doing the research.
So wait.
The Hebrew word. The Hebrew word is rakia, which means expanse. Then it was translated into Latin in the Vulgate, and they translated actually from Syriac instead of from Hebrew. They chose the Syriac word, which came into Latin as firmamentum, and then they transliterated from the Vulgate into the King James as firmament. They invented a brand new word there, right? Now, if you go to Hebrew and you look at rakia, it means expanse, right? You can go talk to any of the millions of modern day Jews that speak Hebrew, and if you want, you can look up in Strong's Concordance, rakia meaning expanse. So
okay, stretched out as a tense.
Yeah.
But okay, so
Yeah.
the
So
context
it's a
of the
tent
word is
now?
of course important. But
Is it a
all right,
tent
that's what I remember.
made out of
You
animal
what?
skin?
A tent?
Well, that's what a tent is to the audience. The
No. The
audience
context of
the
it.
audience of the Old Testament lived in tents. Tents were made out of what? Animal
Sure,
skins.
animal skin.
Okay, so if you're going to
Stretched
say,
out like a tent.
yeah, stretched out. So the sky is animal skin. If you're going to go literal, go literal. All right, keep going
No.
though.
It says as a tent, so it's
Oh,
a simile.
as a tent.
Oh,
Oh, so it's a simile. Okay, so it's not literal. Thank you.
I will say you are better at semantical arguments than most people, man. And I will say also that you've known some things I didn't know. But at the same time, I think you have brushed off a lot of things. I'll just leave that up to the viewer. You know, there's a lot more here, but we've gone through such long,
Yeah.
just subjective. So it's all good.
All right. Well, thank you, Austin. Some people were thinking you would rage quit. I appreciate you did not. I try not to have that happen. We did somebody? Do you know Joey Rocha? Somebody?
I don't know.
Did somebody ban him, or did he go on his own accord? So Joey Rocha was gonna debate FTFE. Do you know who he is? And he was gonna debate him yesterday on Simon Dan's YouTube channel, and then didn't show, and 3,000 people watched. So he was here for a bit. So Joey Rocha, he's still here. So anyway,
Oh, he's like in the chat.
he was in the chat. Yeah, we get some people like Gary Wybenga was here. I saw, and Green Bullion. Everybody likes to time out Green Bullion. They got to take turns because he's, you got to share.
Oh, real fast, because I actually think you do have some pretty logical explanations, and I am honestly saying I am open to the fact that I could be wrong about things. That's why I don't definitively claim anything about the Earth. But something I can't really seem to wrap my mind around. I'm sure there's something I'm missing here. Like if you were to look at the night sky, and see a particular makeup of stars, and then 6 months later, if you can see the same stars, how does that work in the?
Well, so the Earth. Let's see. My globe is really squeaky. So let's say this is the globe.
Mm-hmm.
It's a disc, of course, but all right. So there, it's a moon, or it's a moose, right? So let's tip it there, right? So it's pointing off this way. Now here's what happens. Put the sun here in the middle, right? It's pointing that way, right? When it rotates or orbits half a year later, it's pointing this way again. So the stars this way we still see at night, right? That's going to be the ones to the north, the Big Dipper for us. The stars off this way at nighttime
Would be different.
we see at night, but then when the Earth's over here, we don't see them because the sun is in the way, and so the sky is blue, right? We don't see those stars, but
Sure.
you can still see them with radar and stuff like that.
Yeah, I don't know. I'd have to do that experiment. I haven't personally done it, so I can't make any claims.
The difference between the 24-hour day and a sidereal day is one thing to be sure you look at.
Okay.
So, look at
Montreal
is
I'm
here.
not willing to say that the moon landing was real, but you have made me want to go re-examine the idea that I claim that I know is fake. So
good.
And that's a big part of all of it.
Yeah. Very nice. And Montreal, send me an email. You're due. MCToon@mctoon.net. Oh, see, there's Green Bullion. Somebody get him. Whose turn is it? So Green Bullion is a super troll. He comes to debates, and all he does is he looks at news articles that have the number 33 in it, and he thinks that proves things. That's it. It's an hour of him saying that, and we're like, that's boring. So, all right, Austin, thanks a lot. I got to go. I have an interview here coming up with Billy Zig, who wrote a book called The Elusive Curve. So I haven't, let's see, on Facebook.
All right, man. Well, appreciate you having me on.
I will, this video is on my channel. If you want, you can download it. You can live stream it back on Facebook. You can whatever you want. I give you whatever rights you want to the video.
Awesome.
So thanks a lot, and we will catch everybody else. We'll see you next time.
All right, later, man.
All right, bye.